Call to order the June the 1st, 2016 regular commission meeting. Roll call.
Commissioner Waymire.
Present.
Vice Chair Renaud.
Present.
Chair Howard.
Present.
Commissioner Harris. Commissioner Dunn.
Present.
If you'll all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for the invocation that will be led by Pastor Aaron Harshaw. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we want to thank you, Lord, for the day you've given us already. We thank you that your mercies are new every morning. Your faithfulness is great. Not only, Lord, do we ask for your grace throughout the day to get done that which you have called and commanded that we do, but, Lord, wisdom to do what is right and pleasing. Lord, thank you for our leadership. I pray, Lord, you'd give them the strength to do what you've called them to do as well. And we thank you for the privilege of living in this great country that you have blessed with your grace. For it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. It takes us to correspondence and organizational business. John?
None at this time.
Okay, you have one person signed up for public comment.
It's not till item 3.
Item 3.
Yep.
Okay. That'll take us to the consent agenda. If you've picked up a agenda, you'll notice on the consent agenda the payroll's not on there. We've added it to the consent agenda to be approved today. Okay. The items on the consent agenda is to consider and approve Franklin County minutes for May the 25th, 2016. It's to approve claim vouchers in the amount of $288,536.20. To consider and approve the salt bid to Central Salt in the amount of $13,907.50. And to approve the payroll for 4/21 of 16 to 5/20 of 16 in the amount of $1,066,235.98. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Janet?
Commissioner Waymire.
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud.
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn.
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. Takes us to items of business. The first item of business is to consider and approve replacement vehicle purchase for the juvenile detention. Ethel? Hi.
Good morning.
Ethel.
Commissioners, one thing that wasn't on here, I provided an update to this, to the management summary that Ethel put in. We went back and took a look at the amount that was available, and it was $27,000 and change to do the toilets, to replace all the toilets, all the stools, to stainless steel. 2 of those had been done last year in 2015 budget, and then the rest we went ahead and we're going to do this year. Being that the last year we can go back and make an adjustment and we can get that taken care of, and then this year we've went back and made sure that those funds are coming out of the JDFF facilities fund, making sure that we do that. That leaves approximately about $27,000 left. There's $55,000 to spend, and that leaves about $27,000 there left that we would have available for the purchase of a vehicle, which we feel that would be adequate enough between purchase of a vehicle and the purchase of a partition cage, a universal cage. We would have enough to be able to do that. So we've saved that money and by the toilet purchase, and still have the money for that. Along with that is that there was discussion that when the last vehicle was purchased, the Dodge Dart, is that there was discussion that we would go back, or that we would be trading in the old car. So I went back into both the study session, because that was done in 2014, in June or July of 2014. I went back and took a look at that, and also read the minutes. And if that happened, since study sessions aren't usually taped, and so looking back in the regular session and also in the minutes, and then the minutes from the study session, it didn't reflect that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. It's just I went back to confirm, and I was unable to find that. So, irregardless, in talking with Ethel, she is still finding it that it is still needed. That there are occasions where it does have two folks are going different directions and needing to deliver staff. And so we are requesting that second vehicle.
Okay. Is there anything you add to that, Ethel?
No, I think he did great.
Covered a lot of it, didn't he?
I would just reconfirm that, there are times we have kids that we've had to take to the hospital and have staff stay with them, and it became the Crown Vic was not reliable enough to use on the highway on a regular basis, and so we had a lot of back and forth with the other car. Staff would go up and switch off, and it would have been easier because then at that time that left us with not a reliable vehicle if we needed it. We have people going to court and going to doctor's appointments, and often in the same day, various times, and I just feel like we do need the second vehicle.
See, we had a lot of discussion on this actually at the last commission meeting, and I think one of the main concern from the commission wasn't so much as the purchase of the vehicle, was why the toilets weren't being paid for out of this fund that was available, and was looking at another way of paying for them, but now that's been taken care of, so I don't see any problem with the situation now, and it is money that we need to use, or I guess you have to turn it back if we don't use it. So,
isn't there some concrete, not about this necessarily, a capital need, some concrete or some drainage there by, I guess, about where we park the vehicles?
Yeah, that is something that will require some drainage work at some point in the future.
So the Crown Vic will be sold on Purple Wave or traded in? Or?
Whichever is the most, if we don't get much of a trade-in,
okay,
then we'll definitely try to, either way, it will be liquidated.
anything else? Randall? Roy? If not, would look for a motion to approve the purchase of a replacement vehicle for juvenile detention.
I make a motion we approve the purchase of vehicle not to exceed $29,000, including the cost of installation for the protective partition.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, item number 2, to review and discuss the 2015 annual audit findings. Rodney.
Morning.
Morning, Ronnie, sir.
Morning.
Can we have these out? One in the front there, one to look at. I apologize for not getting these books to you sooner. I had some copy issues over the weekend and nobody available to work on it over the holiday, so. In the front, there are 2 letters. I want to review those with you real quick. The first one is just a list of 8 things that we're required to put in writing to you. Like, we haven't had any disagreements with management, and our responsibilities for the audit, your responsibilities of financial statements, that kind of thing. It's the same letter we've given you for several years now. We're just, auditing standards require us to put that in writing to you, so there's no question about it. The other letter is our management letter concerning the audit, and there are a couple items on there I want to review with you. Number 1, the countywide phone system. During 2015, it looks like they've started billing those to the departments every 6 months instead of every month. And that's fine. You can do that if you want. But the problem is the last 6 months period that was billed was for May through November. So then December doesn't get billed until clear down in the next year. And that really ought to be in the same budget year if we can. I talked to Dustin about it. He's going to try to get it in January so they can get it adjusted in the right budget year for you. It's not a big amount, but it's a few $1,000s that it'll be in the right budget if we can. And I've adjusted it in the audit to reflect it in the right budget year. The other one is just a question I have on the HVAC project and the criminal justice project were funded by a lease purchase with the Public Building Commission. The Public Building Commission issued bonds, and then the county's lease purchasing that from them. You're paying those lease payments out of the bond and interest fund. I'm not sure that's exactly the way you ought to be doing it. To me, it's kind of a gray area. The statute says you should only pay bond payments out of that, which technically they are bond payments for the PBC, but that's a separate legal entity. From the county standpoint, it's a lease purchase. And you're paying lease purchase payments out of bond and interest, which I don't think is right. So I think maybe I'd have Derek research it and see, just make sure you're all right. I haven't adjusted for it or anything, but just make sure you're okay going forward on it. Just something to take a look at. Speaking of the criminal justice project, at the end of the year it was in the red, $271,000 I think. There was $99,000 that you drew over here in February of this year from the trust fund to finish that trust fund out. And then I discussed it with John. There was some equipment that should have been charged to some other funds, and we've made the adjustments for that. So it's up to 0 now once we get the adjustments all posted, and that project's done then. And that's the only cash basis violation we have in the audit. All the other funds are fine. There are no budget violations, so you're fine there. This next one just kind of a minor thing. The HR department prepares payroll each month, and they send a journal entry down to the courthouse to be posted, and they post the money over to a separate bank account, and then all the checks are written to all the employees out of that account. Well, during 2015, Capers changed how they report withholdings on everybody, and that's led to some just minor $2 or $3 variances here and there on what was recorded and what was paid into to Capers. And at the end of the year, your payroll bank account's out of balance like $10. I didn't adjust for it because it's clearly insignificant, but I talked to Gayla, I talked to the treasurer's office. They're going to get together and try to sort that out and make sure it's not a problem in the future. While I was here doing the audit, I talked to Janet, and she indicated that the sheriff wanted to discuss the trust fund and what could or couldn't be expended out of that. I tried several times to talk to him, but he wasn't available when I was, so we kind of missed each other. I did discuss it with John. The statute on that, to me, is pretty broad. You can spend whatever you feel is for your office out of that trust fund for legal law enforcement purposes. But then John noted that there's a AG opinion from 2007 that kind of narrows that down to being non-operating expenses or non-normal expenses. So you can't use it to fund your budget, and you can't use the money in that trust fund to buy things that you would have to buy anyway every year, like just replacing sheriff vehicles and that kind of thing. I don't know that it's been abused in the past. I mean, the items I've looked at in the past audits haven't been an issue, but I know the new sheriff was concerned about it, and I think he was going to discuss that. John was going to discuss that with him to make sure going forward you're all right. Was that you're understanding? Okay. Years ago, the county issued certificates of participation for the mental health center, and they are actually making the payments on those on your behalf. They are still debt from the county. So my concern is And as far as I know, they're making the payments just fine. I haven't seen any issue with that. But I think somebody here needs to be designated to monitor that on an annual basis, just to make sure. Because if something happens, they fall behind, you've got to come up with a couple $100,000 you weren't aware of. It could be a surprise. So I talked to John about it. I know when Lisa was here, she was monitoring it because she was, I guess, on the board out there. But since she's left, somebody needs to be monitoring that to make sure they are making their payments on time and that you've not got a bill out there you're waiting to be shown.
And I already am following up on that.
And everything I've seen says we're paying it just fine, there's no problem. But in the future, we don't want it to be a problem. So, as you're aware, the new tax lid law was signed here a couple weeks ago by the governor. It goes into effect with any budget approved after January 1st. So the budget you work on this summer is still under the old rules. I've never advocated anybody padding a budget, but this is certainly not the year to cut it. If you're going to make any cuts, this is not the year to do it, because this is going to be your base going forward. And any dollars above that will have to be voted on. And you know how hard it's going to be to pass an election to raise taxes, even if it's something really necessary. So just kind of caution you when you're working on your budget to not make any cuts you don't have to make this year. There is one new disclosure we've had to put in the audit this year. Capers is underfunded, like $9 billion. You've probably seen that on the news. We're required to show the portion of that underfunded amount that relates to the employees of Franklin County. And that's, for Capers, it's $5.1 million, and KPNF, it's $3.6 million. So it's a total of almost $9 million. That doesn't mean you're going to have to pay it, but it's a contingency out there. If Capers ever defaulted, they might come back on the county for it, so we have to disclose it as a contingent liability. So that's just in there. It's just for information.
And how much is that per employee? I think you told me that.
I don't have by employee. It varies based on their salaries. I mean, they base on the total payroll for the county.
8,200,000 some employees.
Yeah. But what they do, they take your percentage of your contributions compared to all the other entities in Capers and figure a percentage, and they apply that percentage to that $9 billion, and yours is 8.8 million of that. But if you're looking through there and you see that number in there, that's what that is. It's just something we have to disclose. If you issue debt, bond people want to see that kind of thing because they want to know what's out there. I don't think it's going to hurt your bond rating any, but other than that, everything went just fine. We didn't have any problems with anything. Your people do a real good job. We like working with them year to year. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer if I can.
Since I guess you're the doctor here every year to give us a checkup, what would you say? More or less healthy, good?
Yeah, you're doing real well. Yeah.
Real well? Good.
Yeah.
One thing, Rodney, the new president's deal on overtime for salaried employees, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I talked to Gayla about that the other day. She's been watching a webinar on it, and apparently there's a handful of employees that might affect here at the county, and you've got to decide whether you want to make them salaried and raise them to the $47,000 level, or keep them hourly and pay overtime. It kind of depends on what their hours they work and what. It's going to be something you have to look at by an employee basis, I think. But she had it narrowed down to just a handful of employees that it looked like it might affect. My understanding is that elected officials aren't affected by that. Is that?
That's correct.
So it's just like department heads, like appraiser, noxious weed, some of that. Ones that aren't elected, but you consider them exempt now and pay them salaried, but they might be under $47,000, which is going to be the new threshold for making that determination. And one thing to consider, they are going to raise that periodically. I think it's every 3 years from now on to keep it adjusted by inflation. The problem now, it's been at $17,000 for forever. So they make one big jump to get it caught up, then they're going to adjust it periodically. So if you decide to raise somebody to that level, they're going to be raised down the road too. But other than that, that's all I know about it. I mean, I know Gayla is aware of it, and I think she said she's going to talk to you about it or talk to John about it.
Commissioners, we have been watching that closely, and I've been having conversations with the department heads for the last several months, letting them know which staff members that they have that are going started out, because the number was going from somewhere between 45,000 all the way up to about 50,000 and change, and what it landed on is about 47,000. So since it landed on there, it takes effect December 1st. We've already identified the staff members and the department heads who have that or have been made known. It is something as when we make those changes, we are looking at what's that mean for when it does increase every few years, is to accommodate that growth going forward. And it comes out to only about 3 or 4 employees are going to be affected by that.
Any more questions? It appears that everything you had questions on, John's already aware of and dealing with. So
Yeah, we discussed quite a bit of it in our exit conference when I finished the audit.
good.
I do have one more thing. If you'd want to look at considering a contract for next year's audit, I brought one with me.
We just need to review that and bring it back
Okay.
before the commission.
Okay.
This is the part we always talk about. I guess it's standard accepted practice to every so often change the auditor, and whether or not we want to continue with your firm or another one. And I think we keep kicking it down the road because we're so comfortable with you. You do such a good job, and I guess there's a definite level of trust. But I guess from what I understand, that it's common to change every so many years, so there's a different set of eyes on it.
Some do, some don't. It's just whatever you feel in your situation. Almost all of our clients we've had for 30 years or more, but I know there's some that change every couple of years. It's like clockwork.
Yeah, sure.
It's whatever you're comfortable with.
I guess every year I've been here, we've had this conversation, and I guess at this point, we'd probably need to decide whether or not we're going to issue a, RFP. I guess it would be. It wouldn't be competitive, or continue our relationship with this firm. But
Right. And that would be something when we bring back the contract for consideration, to have that discussion then of what we want to do.
all right.
So, and I can have an opportunity to research a few things, because quite honestly, there's justifications on both sides.
Yeah.
And so I just want to have the opportunity to present that so that you can fully informed make a decision.
Good deal.
All right.
Well, if you think you're going to change, do you still want me to leave this contract with you, or?
I don't. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Right. And there's also a letter of, every 3 years we get audited by a separate auditing firm because it looks how we're doing audits. We've got our latest report. We have to give you a copy of that. It's a clean opinion. We don't have any deficiencies or anything, and that's never been a problem in the past. But we're required to give you a copy of that, so it's attached with you.
Rodney, did you give us a list this year of all the reports?
Yeah, I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. We used to do it on CD, but a lot of people couldn't read them.
Oh.
And the technology chambers can email them. I'll email one to you and John both.
Perfect.
'Cause I know you put it on your website, and that way you got available. You'll need it for your bond issue you're looking at. And if there's nothing else, I'll get out of your way then.
Thanks, Rodney.
Thanks a lot, Rod.
Thank you.
It takes us to item number 3. Consider a 1.5% COLA to be effective on the June the 21st, 2016 paycheck for the Franklin County employees. We do have one signed up for public comment. A citizen desiring to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so at this time. Discussion is limited to 5 minutes, and the commission will not take action or discuss items at this time. Discussion should be limited to matters of county commission business, and public comment is not permitted in regard to personnel matters or on pending legal matters. Items introduced under public comment may become agenda. Come on up.
Gene Hurt, 107 Jefferson Street, Pomona. what can I say about COLA? I mean, I was involved in it for all the years I worked. But now I don't get a COLA from Social Security like the rest of us in here do we, Rick? No. So, but what I want to say is the employees out here in the county, you know, in recent months and in recent days, we've had this flooding. I've seen employees out there and over at Pomona where it was going across that road south of town, just unbelievable. And the work that they were doing for themselves out there and doing it for our county, I stopped and talked to several of them. And, you know, they're proud to work for this county. And I hope that I would like to see more given to them on COLA myself, but that's me talking. But those employees are doing wonderful, and every day they're out there working hard, and a lot of good people there. And you got to treat them right to what you give them, and I think they're pretty happy for what you've done. But I just want to say emphasis on COLA. It's a necessity. It really is in this time we're in, and the turmoils and everything else that's going on in life and cost. So I'd like to see it at 2, but anyway, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Commissioners, last year during the budget discussions, we talked about the COLA as far as moving forward with it. We did the exact same thing that we did the year prior, is that we wanted to take a look at it mid-year. We wanted to take a look after the audit was done, when we knew more exactly what our revenues coming in were, where the economy was going, and before we obligated ourselves going forward. That was a new done in 2015's budget, and it after discussions with you, it looked like it might be a good practice to do that mid-year for our employees. It's just something that gives us a little more opportunity to take a look at things, see where things are as far as the revenues coming in for the budget. I will say this, probably the big indicator for us is that a lot of the things that on the revenue side to come in it's pretty much formulas. One of the big ones that we rely on is the sales tax, and to see where that comes in at. And we know that for budget year 2015, we budgeted 1.65 as our projections, and we came in about $200,000 ahead. Is that we were 1.8 is what it actually came in at, a little over 1.8, and so we were right around $200,000 ahead on our budget revenue forecasts. So that being the case, and everything else was right up to snuff with what we thought it was going to be. Looking at our few funds for roads, since that's separate from the general fund, and then also the ambulance, they are coming in as expected. Ambulance is coming in higher due to the volume of calls that they are getting, and also the solid waste, the landfill, is well ahead of schedule of what we're getting. Our revenues there are higher than what we projected. So all of those things being the case, and looking at our forecasts of what the economy is doing, I get those reports every month, and it's always kind of a good feeling to see when they're coming up very, very regularly, coming in ahead from what they were last year. So as far as 2016, we are on target of what we need to be getting on a monthly basis, what our average is. So far this year, we've been staying right on target with that. Probably the only thing that concerns me is that while we are staying right where we are, our December, what we received in December, that was done in December and we receive it in January, was a little lower. It took a little bit of a hit. And so we were kind of looking at what that means. And my personal assessment of that is that we are seeing some hit that is taken from, number one, the economy, the gas prices being low, is that we were seeing gas prices about half of what they were the year before, and so I think a lot of people were taking that opportunity to maybe go out of town where they haven't before. So from that standpoint, I would encourage people to stay in Franklin County, to spend their dollars in Franklin County. Along with that, I think the other part of that decline was a little bit the increase in online sales. Is that we are seeing more and more people are Black Friday is followed by Black Monday, where there's a lot of online sales. People are online on the internet and doing a lot of shopping that way, and so that continues to increase, and so we have to keep monitoring that. Again, I would say take the opportunity to stay in Franklin County if at all possible, and to do what you can for the economy, because that helps us all. So,
It's my understanding the governor was changing some Medicaid reimbursement rates. Do you know if any of those are going to affect the ambulance?
I think they may, but that would be something probably a little more closely to talk to Nick about. But yeah, I think that may affect them a little bit.
Since we're kind of talking about threats, I guess.
Right, and we are, and that's some of the things that we're looking at is by the Sprinter. We got the new Sprinter in, so it's looking at things like that gives us opportunities for some revenues to lower our costs, but also to have some new revenues coming in for transfers and that sort of thing, and to lower our cost for the expenses associated with that. And then also the community educator portion. We are seeing some returns on that where people, this staff person is really working within the community and saving some dollars, and then some training that has gone somewhere else is now coming here. So we're seeing some revenue from that as well.
She is working on some grants and stuff too, which is additional money coming in for us.
Yep. As always, it's one thing that a lot of that public health and emergency management, they're always looking for grants. I know the sheriff is always looking for grants as well on those things. So for all of that, to wrap it up, it's my recommendation that we move forward with that.
Okay, any more questions? If not, I guess we'd look for a motion to approve the 1.5% COLA to be effective on the 21st of June 2016 paycheck for the Franklin County employees.
So move.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Janet?
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Commissioner Renaud?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. Okay, with that, go to staff reports. John?
Commissioners, one thing that the governor signed last week or so was a law that strengthens CORA as far as the Open Records Act, the Kansas Open Records Act. And just we've had this discussion with all of our staff about the use of personal email accounts for official business for the county. We encourage you to make sure that you're using your account that is provided to you through the county for any personal business. If you're responding to any letters or concerns to constituents, reaching out and communicating with your constituents, that you use official email from the county. What this does is that it opens your personal email accounts to CORA if you're using it for any official business. So we want to minimize that for you. It's not a good practice, and so we've stressed that to our staff, but also as well as our constituents. We strive to be transparent and open with anything that we do, and also make sure that we're conducting business in an open and transparent fashion for our constituents. The employee barbecue is scheduled for June 10th, so that will be next Friday. The budget sessions are scheduled for the 16th and 17th, and we will be getting the books available to you somewhere around the 9th or the 10th of next week. We'll have those ready for you so that you'll have about a week to review those and look over those. Any questions or
Question
concerns?
about Chorus. Sonny made an open records request for email. How would that request be accomplished?
If they wanted somebody's emails,
Yeah. How would that?
well, the request would come through Janet requesting whatever it was that they wanted. We have a form that we require people use when they want to make an open records request. So,
Would like Dustin have to pull up all the email, or how's that work?
potentially, yeah. And on something like that, I am usually involved as well. But yeah, there are programs that can be ran that search through the emails to pull certain subjects and topics to make sure that all of them have been received.
Just didn't know how that would work if somebody made a request like that.
Is that it, Roy?
Do I have anything? Yes, I do. But go ahead.
Do you want it? Derek? Sheriff?
Yesterday, we received the Special Olympics Law Enforcement Torch from Douglas County up at Kalmar Industries, and then today we have runners that are carrying that torch from here in Ottawa down to Beto Junction, where it'll be handed off to another team that's going to end up taking that. It will end up down in Wichita for the Special Olympics championships that are down there. This is it's an annual deal. The Law Enforcement Torch Run did start in Kansas, and so it's kind of special that we continue it on. And we had Special Olympians this morning that were out there with us to carry that torch for the first leg. And I want to also highlight one of our local businesses. This is a fundraiser for Special Olympics, but Kalmar Industries is a big sponsor of that, and I believe they donated $10,000 this year to that, to support that event. And so that's really good for our local businesses to be that involved. John had talked about some of the grants and things that we look for. One way that we do that is through training as well. Under Sheriff Geis is getting ready to go down to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. I'm going to be going to a Homeland Security Executive Management school down there. It's a couple-week school, and it is for law enforcement executives from across the country, and that is going to be at no cost to the county. That this program picks up the airfare, hotels, food, everything. We may have some expenses to pay out of that we will be paying up front, but they're all reimbursed. But we've already got they've already sent us pretty much everything that he's going to need for that. All the transportation, hotels, everything's all
Where's
all
that
covered. That's in Glencoe, Georgia.
Georgia.
So, but and we'll continue to take advantage of those type of things when we can. It's a pretty good program, and we're pretty excited about it.
Thank you. Jim?
We had a number of blade operators out over the weekend trying to recover from the rainfall. The other thing that I'd point out is that with no-till farming, we've found that we've got a large number of corn stalks occupying our culverts, both driveways and crossroad.
I do have a question. Some people have been coming to me asking me questions, and I know Roy's probably had some of the same questions. What's going on with Colorado Road over where the floodwater took out the sides of the road? I've had some people concerned that the sides of the highway there is washed out. And
Yes, there's no forest slope there. As it dries, we'll try to reestablish a forest slope like we have in the past.
yeah, I know we went through that the last time. But
Yes. The material just keeps winding up out in the field to the east.
Would rip rock along there fix that? Because I do remember, like you said, it's been a problem in the past.
Possibly, but I'm not sure you'd want to have riprap for a forest slope where you could have someone with an errant tire get out on top of the riprap.
Yeah.
That would not be a pleasant ride.
Sure.
Chet?
The filing deadline is today at noon, and so we do have someone filed for all of the county positions. We still have a lot of treasurers and trustees for the townships that haven't been filed for, and we do have some precinct committee people, both Republican and Democratic parties, that are available. So if anyone wants to file for those, if you know anybody, they can do it up to noon today.
Okay, that will take us to commissioner comments and board reports. Now you can go, Roy.
Just a lot of activities going on in the community this weekend. Got the Optimists with their duck run and boat runs, raising funds for childhood cancer prevention. Also, it's American Legion Baseball's wood bat tournament this weekend going on. 2nd Street Diamonds. That's all I got.
Colton?
Nothing really. I was wondering, and this was when I was chair too, if we should put the public comment policy on the study session as well. It probably, so I know we ran into that just this morning, but something I remember and it's never brought up when I was chair, but it's not on there, and you basically either have to go pull up an agenda to read it, or since it's not really posted anywhere other than, and
Might even possibly look at wording it a little bit different.
yeah, I think the verbiage was a little specific to a regular meeting, as I remember, but I could be wrong.
Well,
I think the verbiage speaks to a general public comment instead of a public
Right.
comment on an agenda item.
Maybe that's it.
Because-
Yeah,
So in study
that's it.
session, generally, it's directed at a particular item and not at a general public comment.
That's what it was. I knew the verbiage was a little off, but you're right.
Because that's what I was looking at before, where it says basically an item that we should to be brought up. It's not on the agenda. It can be do so at this time. Which
I remember when we had one of our contentious things, I tried to read it and make it apply to it. I struggled through it. It didn't. I mean, it needed to be said. Everybody, so we were on the same page, and everybody knew what the rules was. And as I got to reading, I thought, oh God, this doesn't. Yeah, it was chopped up.
so if you want to look at putting a set agenda on the study session and word it a little bit different, John. Okay.
And I will not be here for the 13th, Monday the 13th. Since we've been talking about that today, I do feel like I need to preface that with, I think this is the first meeting I haven't been at in like 2 years. So
Anything else?
Yeah, I just sent John an email with the dates I was going to be gone, and on the jury duty, I tried the phone thing last night, and that jury duty's been canceled, so I'm off the hook on that one. But I am gone, in August. I went to the Wellsville City Council meeting last Wednesday night. They did pass some speed limit signs. An ordinance changed that in close to the schools, and talked a little bit about handling some of the floodwaters and things that have gone through the city, and some drainage situations. I think they're also looking at the lease purchase agreement with the county-wide system if we go with new communication system stuff and participating in that. And I think they're pretty appreciative of the fact that we might be able to help them piggyback on and do that through the city. So, you know that.
And just so I've started talking with our bond counsel about that and looking at different financing opportunities, different ways to finance that, and just how we would take care of that. So not only the radios, but also the entire project is looking at what our financing options are on that. So we'll be talking about bringing that to you at some point here in the future.
Okay, I've not attended any board meetings since our last commission meeting. Upcoming events, June the 8th, be our next commission meeting. I don't see anything else on that. And with that, would look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned.